On when you're ready here, okay? Okay, it's being at 7 o'clock, and in the absence of the supervisor, the clerk will open the meeting. And tonight's meeting is April 1st, 2014. Will please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call, Supervisor Limata is excused tonight. Trustee LaRue?
Here.
Trustee Pompo?
Here.
Trustee Durant?
Here.
Trustee Trescott?
Here.
Treasurer Johnson?
Here.
And Clerk Rattari is here. Okay, before we go any further, we have to pick a chair of the meeting.
Make the motion that Ernie run the meeting.
I'll support that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second that Treasurer Johnson chair the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Motion carries. The gavel is passed to Treasurer Johnson, and he is now the chair of the meeting.
Okay, the next item on business on the agenda is a consent agenda. Does anyone want anything removed from the consent agenda?
Motion to approve?
Second. Motion to approve and second on the consent agenda. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now we have the regular agenda. Any additions to the regular agenda?
I make a motion, we approve the regular agenda.
Support.
Motion made and support for the regular agenda. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is set. Public comment. Do we have any public comment?
Mike Springer, 206 Eagles Nest Road. Two things. One, I would like to be put on the agenda under 8B, where it says consider the draft report of the ad hoc Recreation Feasibility Committee. Also, one other thing. You're receiving a copy of the narrative for the small Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund grant that was submitted early this morning. This is just one of the two grants. The reason I'm providing this to you is just so you know that what we committed ourselves to, what we've written, and so that if you have any public that has interest in this, you can keep them informed. The other reason is that I want to thank a lot of people here tonight. This is not my writing. I mean, I'm involved in this, but we have language that Jason McCarthy wrote. We have language that Dave Wiegand wrote. We have letters of support from Lori Wiesen from Nokemanon Trail Network, Carol Fulsher from the Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Authority, Lorena Jankerson from North Country Trail Hikers, and also Rod Desjardins from Superior Alliance of Independent Living. So a lot of people contributed to this, and that's kind of the beauty of applying for these grants, is working together as a team. So what is written here, I also want to thank my neighbor Milt Bates. He also helped out with the first section of the narrative there. But I just wanted you to have this for your information, and the good news is that we submitted 3 grants to the state today. The deadline is today, which means that we could still submit that. If we had something else we had to submit, we could submit it up to about 11:59 p.m. today. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comment?
It's Dave Wiegand, 350 Brookton Road. I'm here as a rec committee member. I just wanted to clarify a comment I made at the last board meeting, and it was that when we were talking about the different grants and submitting them, it was my understanding at the time, I think it was everybody's understanding at the time, that if you received the large MNRTF grant, that you would not have an opportunity to receive the small one, and that was not true. As we find out, there is a possibility that you could receive both grants, the large and the small, which doesn't affect a whole lot because you obviously can make that decision when you're approved, but it only impacts the budget by about $6,000 for the rec committee budget. So we can still make that decision when and if we're approved for both of them. I kind of doubt that whether we'll get approved for both of them or not, but it'd be nice to have that opportunity to make that decision.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? We close public comment. Board member comment. Pete?
Just want to remind people now that the snow's melting. Watch your shoulders of the road because we have some bad roads, especially the shoulders. Good example is on Vanderbilt, North Vanderbilt, and different roads like that. So with the snow sort of made it a little smoother for everybody. Now that's going to be gone, so watch your shoulders. There are a lot of potholes out there. Thank you.
Danny?
Just a quick question. I was received a request, or not a request, but a question from a township resident concerning parking ban, if we have one. He's explained that in his neighborhood, it appears that there's a lot of parking on the streets that pretty much cut down his, makes it a little tough for him to make it up and down. So I just want to find out what the deal on that is.
Yes, Matt?
We do not have a parking ban because we don't own any of the roads. The road commission, however, does maintain the sides of the roadways, and if there are areas of the township where, because of vehicles being parked on the road, they're obscuring the traffic or obstructing the traffic, give the road commission a call and they handle that.
Anyone else? Randy Vittar?
Okay, I got a couple things. I got a message from Supervisor Lima today, and he wants to poll the board on the joint committee meeting with the Planning Commission, and he's wondering if April 14th, which is a Monday, at noon here would work. And if so, I'll wait for the board to look and see. If so, we'll have to make a motion and approve that, and I'll schedule that as a joint meeting then.
What time was that, Randy?
It'd be at noon to 1 o'clock. It'd be an hour meeting with the Planning Commission. And any topics that board members would want to discuss could be sent to Dennis, and then we could put that on the agenda for that meeting. So, but basically it's a work session.
What is your pleasure?
Okay with me.
I don't have a problem.
And Randy? Can't do it. Pete?
No, we got events at 11 o'clock that day, so we'll be done with that and go right over to the noon.
Okay, I'll make a motion then. We schedule a joint work session with the Planning Commission on Monday, April 14th at noon. Here, it'd be at here.
Motion made in support to have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission on the 14th of April.
Yes.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You will set it up then?
Yeah, I'll have to post that. I'll post it tomorrow.
Okay.
My other comments are, as with Pete, there are some bad potholes forming out there as the roads thaw out from winter, so be careful. On elections, you have until April 22nd of April at 4 o'clock to, if you want to run as a county commissioner, as a Democrat or Republican, you have till 4 o'clock on April 22nd to file a petition to move forward on that. And I think that's about it for near items.
Manager Gerard?
Just to kind of dovetail, since two of the board members have already addressed potholes and that, the bigger issue that I see coming in the spring is as the snow is melting and the water's running off, the road sides will become eroded, sides of the road. So be very cautious of those when you're avoiding the potholes. You don't want to drop off the side, particularly on the typical stretches that we usually see bad on there are Grove Street and some of the hills, Vandenboom and some of the other hills in Trowbridge, where the sides erode from the running water.
Any other comments? I have to also bring up a comment about the roads. Living on Fair Avenue, it has become a very interesting jaunt down Fair Avenue with the traffic there, and the place in front of the digging in front of my house has really become a hazard at times in that, because they don't slow down for it. They're all over it in that, and they keep filling the holes, but they last for maybe an hour or two, and they're gone because they don't slow down. They just hit it. And last night, I thought there was a couple of them. I had to get up and look because I didn't think they made it through the way it sounded in that too. So, but all I can say is slow down and be careful in that. Okay, that finishes board member comments. We get into unfinished business. Yes, Len. Excuse me, Len.
It's okay.
You wouldn't take chairman,
I
so I'm
wouldn't-
going to bypass.
Yeah, I wouldn't let you get by with it either. Just a couple things. We did not have a planning commission meeting last week. It was canceled, so I don't have any report on that. And I did forward to you comments that we're going to talk later about the personnel manual. I forwarded through your email my comments, and I don't know how detailed we're going to get into that tonight. If I didn't know whether to mark one up or whatever, but if not, you can kind of see where I had some comments and questions. I put the questions in green, things that I didn't quite understand. And you may have also received in your email tonight a forward. It went to Randy and Jason and Dennis, and I believe the board, unless they just got it, I'm not sure. From Carol Fulsher, we're going to talk about the ad hoc advisory draft tonight. And she didn't know we were having a meeting tonight, or maybe somebody would have come, but they have written a letter saying that they do not want to be part of the recommended partnership with that ad hoc committee, with that, what's the word I'm looking for? Authority, sorry. So the Heritage Trail has forwarded a letter. I believe Jim Thomas signed it. It should be in your mailbox, so you have a copy. If not, Dennis and Randy will have it, and Jason, saying that they don't want to participate in the collaboration, would be a good word. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Did I miss anybody? See, you almost missed Lynn and that. Okay, now we'll go into unfinished business. The first one is the follow-up on the road committee order of repair recommendations. Chairman, you have a few comments.
I have probably 15 or 20 minutes worth of comments.
You may be cut off.
And assuming we can get this whole thing working this morning, today.
John, this is going to be on all three screens, so it might be better to get it on this one up here. So,
What this is going to be tonight is under the assumption that there's going to be some viewers at home, the residents that don't quite know where this came up from or where it was headed. It's just a quick review of how it started and where we went and how we ended up here tonight, and then take it from that point forward. The whole thing will take about 15 or 20 minutes. First, in the introduction, we got to do the general disclaimer that announces that we understand the Marquette County Road Commission owns the roads within Marquette Township, and as an owner is charged with the road repair and maintenance. Inasmuch as the Marquette County Road Commission funds are limited, road repairs have taken a backseat to more immediate issues. In recent past, and in response to residents' concerns, the board has elected to bear the lion's share of some of the cost of selected road repairs in an effort to bring the more heavily traveled roads into acceptable condition. That current condition of Warner, Brookton, and Moran Streets, to name a few, are a testament to that effort. In response to ongoing residents' concerns and as a result of the 2011 community survey, the Township Road Committee elected to study the problem with an eye towards resolving the problem that is quickly approaching a point of no return. Early in 2013, the Road Committee embarked on evaluation of the roads within our most populated area, Trowbridge. The intent was to recommend an order of repair, so as funds became available, the roads with the greatest need would receive their attention first. Additional local factors were used in conjunction with the Marquette County Road Commission Payzer system to evaluate the order of repair. The local factors that were used were emergency routes, complete streets, north-south and east-west through streets, and school bus routes. The local factors were used to adjust the order of repair, moving more critical roads toward the top of the list regardless of the Payzer recommended repair categories. And just as a refresher, those recommended repair categories are reconstruction, overlay, chip seal, crack filling, and new. So there's 5 of them. We'll be talking about those quite a bit here in just a few minutes. As the study progressed, it quickly became apparent that our current budget could not keep pace with the rapidly declining condition of our township's roads. And it was at that juncture that the road committee elected to take a more aggressive approach and recommend a fix for the entire township over a relatively short period of time. Due to the expense involved, it was the roads committee's further conclusion that the question should be decided by the township residents. So on November 19th, the road committee presented our findings of our initial study, along with 2 recommendations for the board's consideration. The first recommendation is up there now. That is the one that the board ultimately decided to move forward with. That's the way it was presented to the board. That's a copy of that recommendation. It reads, the road committee recommends that the board direct the committee to expand the submitted survey area, which was Trowbridge only, to include the entire township and amend the order of repair accordingly. The direct staff to research funding options, for example, grants, bonds, millage, or a combination thereof, to accomplish the Payzer recommended repairs and maintenance with completion in 7 years. Once the order of repair survey is complete, Public Works should review the committee's recommendation and factor aging water and sewer systems, noting those specific road segments requiring repair and or major construction within the outlined 7-year time period. It was further recommended that once an order of repair and funding options are established, the township residents be surveyed to support before proceeding. We decided at the meeting that night that they would move forward with recommendation 1, and they would put it on a ballot for whatever type of funding was decided upon. That is a copy of the summary of the recommendation 1 as it was presented to the board. The entire spreadsheet was obviously too large to put on the screen tonight. You can see the total cost of those repairs is just a little over $7 million. Recommendation 2 read essentially the same as 1, except it had narrowed the scope from Marquette City on the east, Wright Street on the north, Commerce Drive on the west, and US 41 on the south, and had shortened the time for completion to 5 years as opposed to the 7. Again, the board selected number 1. You can see the recommendation number 2 is on the screen now, the summary. It's just about half the cost of 1 at $3.5 million. Fiscal effect, a repeat of what we just talked about, was on the bottom of the recommendation. And the noteworthy things we took out of that recommendation for this presentation tonight was that approximately 56% of our residents live within that area defined by recommendation 2, or Trowbridge. Of approximately 50 miles of township roads, roughly 14 miles are located within that same area. And of approximately 50 miles of roads within the township, slightly less than 30 miles are evaluated in the Payzer report. The remaining unrated 20 miles are not hard surface roads. Payzer recommended repairs other than reconstruction comprise 10.6 miles. Corresponds to $313,530. That equates to $14,789 per lane mile. You're going to see per lane mile in quite a few spots here. That's the way Payzer addresses the issue, and that's the way asset management addresses the issue. And if you want to double that, that's what it costs you to do a 2-lane highway for 1 mile. Payzer recommended reconstruction only comprises 19.1 miles, which corresponds to a little more than $6.7 million, or $175,732 per lane mile. And you might just want to note that the disparity between roads requiring other than construction and those requiring construction is about $160,000 a lane mile. That brings us to where we're at tonight, and tonight's is more about asset management. Asset management. On February the 19th, 3 Township Road Committee members and Manager Gerard attended a transportation asset management workshop. By definition, asset management is an ongoing process of maintaining, upgrading, and operating physical assets, in this case we're talking roads, cost effectively based on a continuous physical inventory and condition assessment. In an effort to better understand the principles of asset management, we decided to take a brief tour of the road repair principles and their association with the PASER ratings. As everybody on the board just understands, I'm sure, as PASER stands for Pavement Surface Evaluation Rating. PASER is a process in which a certified analyst evaluates each segment of road and rates their surface condition on a scale of 1 through 10. PASER then groups their 1 through 10 rating system into what they call windows of opportunity. Their windows of opportunity are shown now. Rating of 9 or 10 on the PASER scale suggests there's no maintenance required. 8 is little or no maintenance, and that equates to crack filling. A rating of 7 is routine maintenance to include crack sealing and minor patching. A rating of 5 to 6 is preventative treatments such as seal coating. And once you get into 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, that is structural improvement. 3 and 4 being structural improvement and leveling, so it means overlaying or recycling. And 1 and 2 is reconstruction, which normally entails removing the asphalt and the gravel base below it and replacing it. So before proceeding deeper into the principles of asset management, we take a look at the basic view of road construction so that you're familiar with the terms we're using for the rest of the presentation. In order to do that, you need to keep in mind that there are many factors that affect road deterioration, but all of them get back to water infiltration as being the problem. This is a typical pavement layer. It's asphalt, gravel base, sand subbase, and then the native soil. This is the first signs of distress. It's just simply a crack in the asphalt pavement. If this is treated at this point, the crack is filled. It's not a big problem. If it's not treated, you get water that infiltrates into the crack, softens the subbase, and allows the asphalt to depress into that subbase, causing additional cracks. Additional cracks, as you can imagine, allow more water. And what you end up with, moving from left to right, is roads that start out with an initial crack, and because they're not maintained and they're not filled on time, they end up with what you see on the far right. This is a more particular look at PASER 8, 9, and 10, and you'll see there's just an occasional crack that runs across the road. That's usually a crack 1/4 inch or less. Crack filling would take away the water infiltration of those roads at that point. If it's not done, you end up with a PASER 5, 6, or 7, and depending on where it falls on the 5, 6, or 7 scale, it's a little more intensive crack filling at 7, and it gets down to seal coat as you get towards 5, which is still in the capital preventive maintenance category. If you do nothing, you end up in the PASER rating of 1, 2, 3, or 4, which is some form of reconstruction. These are the key pavement definitions in asset management. First is critical distress point. It's simply the point at where the pavement distress changes from needing preventive maintenance to needing structural improvement. On the PASER rating, that point is at a PASER rating of 4. RSL is remaining service life, is the time in years from the present to where the pavement reaches that PASER 4 or critical distress point to where preventive treatments are no longer beneficial. ESL is extended service life, and that is the time and years that you add to a segment of road, that you add to the remaining service life, depending upon the type of fix you apply, whether it be crack filling or seal coating or overlay. All of those will add service life to the road. The PASER categories, again, are routine maintenance, 8 through 10. Capital preventive maintenance is 5 through 7. And structural improvement is 1 through 4. Asset management refers to windows of opportunity. And if you take a look at the top of the screen in the light blue, this shows you where the road started when it was new, and that equates to a PASER rating of 10, and you can see that it goes along pretty good until it starts its deterioration curve. When it enters the yellow down here, you can see that it started deterioration at a more rapid rate. This is where it enters some type of heavy preventive maintenance or light rehabilitation. Nothing's done, it continues down into the heavy rehabilitation, which equates to some kind of a seal coating or a lighter overlay. If you don't do anything when it gets down to that CDP, critical distress point, now you're into some type of construction. Critical distress point relates to a PASER rating of 4. This is the pavement deterioration curve. It's rated in an asset management program. As you can see, it starts out at a 10. If you take it from today, that's represented at the 5-year point on this graph, and that's where we look at it today. The remaining service life is where that curve reaches a critical distress point, which is at about 15 years for a new road. The objective of asset management is to take the road out to a useful life of 30 years. The approaches to asset management is, the first one is worst first, and that's pretty much what us and every other township have been doing. We select the worst roads, usually roads that have had little or no preventive maintenance, when we reconstruct or rehabilitate them. What asset management is suggesting is that we apply a mix of fixes, and contrary to what we normally do, we select the roads in good shape and for preventive maintenance projects, because you get more miles of road that you can put low-cost treatments on. And the reconstruction money is only as money permits after the preventive maintenance projects are complete. They do a couple scenarios. Again, this is a mix of fixes and what it is, and it's simply applying the right fix at the right time. Extensive preventive maintenance is the priority, rehabilitation when it's really needed, and reconstruction is no longer the priority. Asset management works on a prediction, and asset management program is across the United States. And it works on a couple rules of thumb. One is new asphalt pavement will last 14 years. The other one is 5 years after rehabilitation or 2 years after an overlay, you need preventive maintenance in the form of a crack seal. And 8 years after resurfacing, you'll need a seal coat. And overlays the last 6 years. The problem with an asset management is that there's no calibration for local weather factors, freeze-thaw cycles, or anything else, so that may shorten or lengthen that anticipated 14 years. So that makes their assumptions sensitive to error. The cost effectiveness of the treatments are shown on this screen. First, they come up with a fixed type of a crack seal. The cost per lane mile, and there's that lane mile again, is $4,000. That will add a year to the life of the road. And so the cost per year of added life is $4,000. The next one down says if you're going to seal coat and crack seal, that's going to cost you $20,000 a lane mile, but it's going to last from 5 to 9 years, which equates again to $4,000 per year of added life to the road. As you move into the more expensive treatments, the next one is overlay. That's $100,000, lasts 8 to 12 years, and it's $12,500 a lane mile. Crush and Shape, $150,000 for 14 years, is $10,700 a lane mile per year of added life. And the most expensive option is Reconstruction, $300,000. It adds 15 years of life to the road, but it's at a cost of $20,000 a year for added life. Now, they give us a couple of scenarios here. This is strictly a rehabilitation at 14 years. And if you notice up here, we started out at a PASER rating of 10, and 14 years later, it's deteriorated to a PASER of 3, which says some form of reconstruction. We did a crush and shape on it. A crush and shape is strictly grinding all the asphalt off of the surface, mixing it with the sub-base, compacting that, and putting an overlay over top of it. When we did the crush and shape, we moved the road back up to, it looks like about an 8.5 or 9 on the PASER. We did nothing else in preventive maintenance to the road out to 30 years of age. And you see at year 30, it arrives at a PASER rating of 2, which is suggesting some form of heavy reconstruction. If you look at their next scenario, they're looking at the cheapest option, which is to seal coat at year 10. You can see it moves it from about a 6 up to an 8. You seal coat again at year 16, and it moves it from about a 5 up to an 8 again. Seal coat at 22, which moves it from something better than 4 to about a 7, and then between 22 and 30 years, they don't do anything again, which ends up at a PASER rating of 2, or I'm sorry, PASER rating of 1 at the 30-year point. And anytime you end up at a PASER rating of 2 or 1, you're looking at the treatment from that point on is $300,000 per lane mile. The last more recommended cure is to seal coat at year 10. It takes it from a 6 back to an 8. The next treatment goes on an overlay at year 18. It's reached a PASER of 4, and it takes it back up to 9. And then they don't do anything for the balance of 30 years. But at 30 years, it ends up at a PASER rating of 5, which is still a serviceable road. That's cost $120,000 a lane mile. The comparison being no preventive maintenance, the total cost is $150,000 per lane mile with an end condition of poor. That means to fix that problem at year 30, you've got to spend $300,000 a lane mile. Using preventive maintenance, the total cost is $120,000, ends up at an end condition of fair, which means you're talking more like $175,000 a lane mile to bring that back up. Now in your packets tonight, there should be an amended order of repair with a March 19 effective date. The order of repair has been sorted into the 5 categories of reconstruction, overlay, chip seal, crack filling, and new. Each category was adjusted to reflect the 4 factors, the same 4 factors were used in the initial survey: emergency routes, complete streets, school bus routes, and north, south, east, west through streets. This is a copy of the summary of that order of repair you have in front of you, and you can see it's still at a little over $7 million. As opposed to the initial summary distributed on November 19th, this most recent order of repair has been sorted within each PASER-defined category. The application of asset management has demonstrated that priority should be given to preventive maintenance over reconstruction, so we didn't want to mix the categories. Principles of asset management will effectively define the most cost-effective order of repair by applying a mix of fixes as opposed to a worst-first approach. Also, the use of asset management programs is essential when developing follow-up maintenance projections, because I'm sure nobody wants to go out 7 years spending $7 million and not have a maintenance program in place to take care of it from that point on. The yearly budget analysis required to ensure that once we've repaired our roads, we don't find ourselves at this point of disrepair again. The Marquette County Road Commission uses and regularly updates an asset management program named RoadSoft. The RoadSoft Asset Management Program is available from the Marquette County Road Commission at no cost to the township. The summary says that over the next 7 years, the cost of road repair is forecast to be in excess of $7.1 million. That equates to slightly over $1 million per year. If we apply the worst first scenario, the first 6 years will be occupied with Paiser ratings 1 through 4 at a cost of $6.5 million. Year 7 will be spent completing forecast repairs to Paiser-rated roads 5 through 10 at an anticipated cost of $357,790. Unfortunately, the majority of the Paiser-rated roads 5 through 10 will have deteriorated to a rating of 4 or below over that same 6-year period. The further deteriorated road condition will increase the cost of repair from $357,790 for 16 miles of road to roughly $4.5 million once they've reached that Paiser rating of 4 or below. On the other hand, if we apply a principle of assets management, the mix of fixes, we'll apply Paiser recommended repairs to roads rated between 5 and 10 within the first year at a cost of $357,790, and the balance of $642,000 spent that year would go towards road construction. Years 2 through 7 would find preventive maintenance dollars to be less than $150,000, with the balance of that $1 million going toward road construction. At the end of 7 years, applying principles of asset management to township road repairs, we will have realized our goals, and the roads within our township should have a Paiser rating of 6 or greater. Questions?
Questions, board members?
Yes. Can I go first then, since I had to go last time?
You can go first.
Okay, thank you. This is awesome. You guys, you did an awesome job here. So do I understand then that the adjusted rating that you've put in is the asset management side of the Paiser rating? Is
No.
this- oh.
No.
So I'm trying to figure out how you have this sorted.
The way we sorted it is we took the Paiser ratings, and they are sorted under those 5 categories: reconstruction, overlays, chip seal, those 5 categories. And we adjusted within each one of those categories. We changed the order of repair by putting in local factors like the through streets, the complete streets. So within that category of reconstruction, we didn't leave it alphabetical. We changed the order of repair. So if you go from top to bottom, that shows, after they've been adjusted for local conditions, what that order of repair should be within that reconstruction category.
So the South Vanden Room, what is that, .058 length,
Mhm.
isn't necessarily the first one you do then?
Is that the
Just
first one
'cause
on
it's
the
at
list?
top, right.
That would be the first
That
one.
is the first one.
That's the first one that's recommended under reconstruction. And you gotta, the reason we left them in their individual categories is because if we apply asset management, it says that that isn't where the priority goes. That you need to go back and fix everything that's under 5 through 10.
So you're starting with a -2 then, your adjusted rating.
Yeah, and that just,
And going up.
and what that simply does is it takes a Paiser rating on Vanden Boom, and I don't know what it was
It's 2.
right offhand, and it says that it's a through street and a complete street, and every time you add another one or more of those local factors, it subtracts a number away from that Paiser rating. And you get that adjusted Paiser rating in the last column, which is what the sort is done by,
That's what I thought.
but it doesn't change the actual Paiser rating that was recommended by the
So
county.
that is what you're using your asset management to, not correct the Paiser rating, but put it into a better construction perspective.
I understand the question you're asking, and it's kind of a home-built asset management. We don't use the asset management program currently.
Okay.
What I'm suggesting is, if you want to find the most cost-effective way to do this repair, that we get and use an asset management program on an annual basis. That will tell you what the most cost-effective repairs that we can do to our road for our $1 million for the first year, where we should spend that $1 million and where it's going to save us the most amount of money, because that program will forecast it out. It'll tell you how much life you added to the road, and it will tell you how many roads, how many miles of road you're going to get fixed for your money.
So how does the road commission feel about this? I mean, obviously, they're willing to,
I had a
give up.
discussion
They're
with Jim
still in charge.
Iwaniki in Manager Gerard's office. He was going to update it on the 17th of March, and he was more than happy to, he suggested that we have it someplace already, but we don't know where it is and we can't find it, but he said we could have it again. It's just a matter of going and getting it, I guess.
so he's all right with, I mean, obviously, we've made,
He says because we're a township and part of the county that we are, I can't remember the term he used, Randy. Yeah. So we had as much right to that asset management program as they did.
Yeah, it's a public document, basically. It's a publicly constructed tool, and what they need to do, though, to be in a position to allow us to use it and to manipulate it, they use it for their purposes, but for us, we're looking at a little bit different purpose. So to manipulate it, they had to make some administrative changes to it, and that's what Dave was referring to, that they were trying to get done by March 17th. We just haven't seen it yet.
And the asset management program it's not an online thing you use. It's downloaded onto your computer, and you can manipulate it as you see fit and come up with the fix you want, and then it's recommended back to the board. It's not something that Marquette Township will go in and start tweaking, and it will change anything the county's looking at on their end.
In essence, what they're doing is isolating it, so our changes don't impact their plan, basically. And then what we'll be doing is coordinating with them on the order, because we now pay 60% basically of the repairs, providing they have their 40%, which is seriously in question.
because
Right.
they have a budget amount for us to do any kind of repairs or.
Well, maintenance,
and
yeah,
stuff.
they have a maintenance budget for us, is all that they have right now. There is no, I shouldn't say no, but there is a limited reconstruction activity that's going to be done over the next 2 years, and it's primarily 492 in terms of reconstruction. Otherwise, it's maintenance, limited maintenance. I think the easiest way to look at this is what the road committee, and Dave, certainly correct me if I'm misstating this, but the road committee has taken the Paisley ratings basically and gone one step further and identified those things that within our specific community put more importance on other pieces of road by the factors that they've applied in terms of trying to address those, putting the dollars where it does the most benefit to the largest segments of the population first, basically, and extends the life of the roadway. And and that's we've been doing that. You've seen in previous years where we've done crack sealing for $35,000, $55,000, $60,000. Well, that's what it was doing, was trying to preserve some of those roadways for an additional 3 to 5 years. That otherwise would have deteriorated much more quickly as the water infiltrated into the subbase.
So describe the difference then for the residents who have seen us do some repairs already. What is Werner and what is Brookton? What steps are those?
Warner was a reconstruction. They actually
Right.
pulled up a lot of the subbase and took care of some of the water issues, and that was a lot of heavy reconstruction.
That was intended to be about a 15-year fix.
And that's what we referred to before, is that the Paisley rating says, or asset management says that a new road is good for 15 years. Now the objective is to apply asset management's principles to Warner Street and make it 30 years out, still at a Paisley rating of 6, which beats 50-some% of the township as far as serviceable road. Brookton Road was a wedge and overlay, which is one of the less aggressive reconstruction techniques that are used.
We didn't do anything with the subbase. It was basically to level the road and to put a new surface on, and that was hopefully a 5 to 7 year fix. Hopefully.
But again, that 5 to 7 year fix, if you want to extend that out, you have to do some preventive maintenance on it. Which it's at the way we do things today, it would be hard to justify going out and doing preventive maintenance on a limited budget and letting the rest of the township roads that are clamoring for reconstruction go. It'd be better off to be sitting here with a program that says in 7 years all the roads are going to be fixed, and we're just doing it in an order that's going to be the most cost effective for our dollars.
So do you have a proposal then as to what to do with the millage or how to ask the residents?
By the board from their November 19th recommendations, they put Manager Gerard in charge of different funding sources and to come back with the board on the funding options. And at that meeting, the board decided that when that was all done, they took the recommendation right at face value. They're going to involve Kurt when he takes a look at the order of repair with respect to sewer and water mains that are going in, and he's talking primarily northwest Trowbridge. To put that into the mix, so that adjusts the order of repair a little bit. So this is by no means the first or last order of repair. This will be adjusted half a dozen times before we even get close to even deciding if we really want to proceed with this or not.
So your presentation and recommendation then is to go with the asset management?
Yeah,
To fit into what we're already
recommendation
doing.
is to procure the asset management program, to give it to the road committee to work with for a while so we can come up with a order of repair that we can recommend.
Sounds good.
And it's pretty much we're all involved in it, basically. The road committee is working at it from the standpoint of the roads. Planner McCarthy is working at it from the standpoint of land use and where we anticipate development and what impact that's going to have on traffic and those kinds of things. Superintendent Page is looking at it from the standpoint of his current plan in terms of changes or improvements to the water and wastewater system, utility systems, how those would be impacted by these road repairs. Obviously, if you're going to be taking up a road like on Werner, like we did on Werner, that accelerated a lot of things that we probably weren't going to do for another 5 years, but as long as the road's open, we did it then, basically, so we wouldn't have to go back and break that surface. You know, once you start breaking the surface, then, all bets are off. You don't know what's going to happen with the roadway. So all those things are going to come together into a final report to you, and once those are all done, then our funding sources will be known, because Kirk has some funding service on his side. As a for instance, Dave and I have been talking, some of the roads are being looked at for total reconstruct, may be done by other people with other projects. As a for instance, if Kirk has already got a plan to do some improvements or repairs or installation of water or wastewater lines, the roadway is going to come up and be put back as part of that project. So that wouldn't necessarily have to be on this project. It would be funded from another source, one of the state revolving loan funds. So all those things are being pulled together into a single report to give the board a better picture on just exactly how much you might have to go to other sources, whether it's millage or bonding or whatever, outside of some of these other programs that we have available to us through Public Works and through other aspects.
And where this is going is it's eventually the residents will be asked if they want to proceed or if they don't.
Right.
And it's an effort to get as much information out there to them as possible with considering when is my road going to be fixed, which is the biggest question everybody raises, to how much is it going to cost and what is it going to affect my taxes every year.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody needs to know that to make an informed decision. So that's why we started early.
Yeah, and one of the benefits that we have that a lot of other places don't have is we're continuing to grow. I mean, we're continuing to add tax base. We're continuing to increase basically what one mill is worth by spreading over a larger population.
Thank you.
Pete, Dave, would you explain on Warner Street? In the past, we've done the street now we won't use it, do anything for 30 years. But under risk management, would you explain what would you do with that road?
Under asset management, it defines when you should go back and look at that road and do some crack fill. And I'm sure we've reached that point now. We should be going back to look at crack fill on Werner Street. If you want to extend it out, and every time you do crack filling, you add another year to that 15. So if you keep doing crack filling, you keep adding a year every time you do it, and that's the low cost. It's $4,000 a lane mile. So if you can push it out 30 years between crack filling and seal coating, if you can take it out to 30 years and for $120,000 a lane mile, and extend it another 15 years, you're doing well.
Right. It's only going to last. It's only going to last the 30 years if you do routine maintenance on it. And, this year this last winter is a classic example. We're gonna have a lot of road cracking this spring, lots.
And I'm suggesting that if you can take Warner Street out to 30 years and it ends up at a Paisley rating of 6, that you can effectively continue with some other preventive maintenance measures that push it beyond 30 years. They just happen to use the 30 years on their asset management program. But obviously, if it's at a 6, you can continue adding treatments to it that push it out a little farther. And part of the asset management program is it tells you when that's still effective and still cost effective versus it's time to rebuild it. And
I think it's
I
important
would think
because we-
the asset management program is something that the road committee or somebody needs to review on an annual basis. And we have a certified Paisley analyst that works here in the office, manager or Planner McCarthy. One of the keys to an asset management is when a repair is done on a road, you go into your local asset management program and you change the Paisley rating on that road. So when you're looking for budget options for before next June, that is already entered into the mix, and you can come up with a realistic proposal of what roads need attention.
How can the residents see a copy of this Paisley study? Are we going to have one available at the desk? If they'd like to come in and take a look at it?
Well, right now, it's in draft format. You know, when we get the final report on it, absolutely, that'll be published. It'll be on our website, and, you know, there'll be, you know, places for people to see.
Yeah, and that order of repair is very, very preliminary. When you enter factors of water and sewer into that and all that type of mix, you're gonna seriously change that order of repair. And especially when you factor in an asset management suggested order of repair, that'll start mixing the categories together and telling you which roads you need to do in which years. And that'll seriously alter that order of repair. It'll put it back into an order that is similar to what you saw the first time around, which has the treatment categories intermixed. And you'll see a lot of the preventive maintenance categories on the top of the list.
Other questions? Dan?
Could you give, well, maybe the residents also, what the criteria for emergency roads, complete streets, well, I guess north, south, east, west through streets isn't.
The emergency routes, Ron DeMars is a member of the road committee, and he put together the emergency routes, and we discussed that as being more than a simple response time from the fire hall to the place of incidents. That an emergency route is actually the routes most commonly traveled by the volunteer fire department from the time they get the call till they get to the fire department, and then from the fire department to the place of incident. So it includes, because it's volunteer, it includes both ends of that fire hall. But that was recommended, that emergency routes were recommended by Ron DeMars, and that was the criteria he used to recommend them.
And the complete streets?
Complete Streets was identified a couple years ago, 2 years ago, Mike? Based on it's the one that originated in the rec committee and then came through and out of the road committee, and the board accepted it, I think it was almost a year ago. Defined the complete street ordinance, and then we've gone through and taken the principles of complete streets and applied it to the roads. And the principles of complete streets is to move people by other means of transportation other than automotive to nodes of activity, whether it be Lions Field or the Westwood Mall or wherever that area of activity might be. It looks at the best way to move them from point A to point B by some other mode of transportation besides automotive.
And to minimize the conflicts.
Right, minimize
Well, yeah.
conflict with traffic.
You know, and I agree with Lynn, you guys did an excellent job on this. I'm very impressed with it. I guess I'm looking at this and I'm trying to figure out the complete streets one. For instance, South Vandenboom Road has a -1 for complete streets, yet North Vandenboom Road has a 0. And I don't understand why North Vandenboom Road wouldn't have a complete street also, since it's also a.
Okay, North Vandenboom Road doesn't have a complete streets on it because If you look at the other streets, Woodridge and Fair, those roads take the residents that are traveling by bike or walking, it takes them to a specific area of activity. Whether Erie Street, for example, would take residents to Lions Field. Woodridge takes them to Lions Field. Woodridge connects to Fair, which takes them over to Ontario, and Ontario connects everybody every place. That's why Werner is defined as a complete street, because it's got the safety strip on the side of it so that it can be used for pedestrian transportation. But North Vandenboom, while it is pretty much a through street, it sets pretty close to Ontario, and Commerce Drive is right over there, and Commerce Drive is a complete street.
There's no questions? Only thing I have, is I'm listening to everything, and this looks like this is the first mix that you have. And there's a lot more going into it as we move down the ladder.
There's, when the board took action on this November 19th, they wanted the different groups to come back in the first meeting in April with a presentation. That's why we're here tonight. There is a lot more work to do. We need to get the asset management program. And if I had never seen the asset management program, or any of the road committee had never seen the asset management program, you'd have come up with the order of repair that you had the first time around. But having seen that, it makes so much more sense, and it's so much more cost effective to apply their principles. And so yes, there is a lot more work to do. That's why we started in April, because I suspect the residents will be making a decision on this sometime in the August to November mark.
I think the first thing we have to do is make sure that the resident does not take this as this is the direction we're going. This is just the first step of the whole picture and it's the beginning of it. And as we move forward, it comes together closer and closer as we add more information to it.
And that's why I added so much time to the start of that presentation, so that anybody who's watching could see how we got started down this path and why we're where we're at today. And we do have a lot more work to do.
Yeah, this is a lot like a preliminary first draft budget. You don't really publish that because people look at it and that's what they're focused on, and that's really not where it's going. And that's the same thing here. This is a piece of the finished project.
This is step one, you might say. Of
Correct.
many steps to follow in that. So,
And I would hope that, obviously, we're going to have a public forum meeting on it once we get our finalized one, because this is going to be going up for a millage vote, so I want people to be completely informed exactly before they make the vote, so
And what-
hopefully we can set that up
And
before.
what the consensus of the board was at the November 19th meeting was to gather all this information from all the different departments, make sure it's presented as it shows up at different meetings, so that the public can be as well informed as they can, and then obviously that leads right into a couple public hearings on it, so that before it comes to a vote.
Pete,
But where we're heading, because of a lack of maintenance on our roads, we're heading to a gravel if we don't have to do something, because we have to do something in the future, because our roads are deteriorated so bad, there's no coming back on most of them, so. It's very important that people pay attention to this, come to the meetings when we have the meetings, voice your opinion, and let us know.
One other thing is I know, and that's true. I mean, we don't want to go to gravel, but unfortunately, we still have gravel roads out here. So somebody is going to say, geez, I have gravel, I have a mud hole right now out there because of this stuff. So, we're going to have to look at those people too.
Well, and we stuck with Pazer because that was a quantifiable subject, but Pazer only addresses, in this study, it only addresses hard surface roads. There are other Pazer programs out there that address other than hard surface, but the county doesn't use them. They don't take any readings on it, so we don't have that information available to us.
Manager Gerard?
The only comment I was going to make basically is that the board's going in this direction, the township's going in this direction, because it's very, very unlikely there's going to be any kind of a regional or statewide assistance in fixing the roads. And the question is, it was at the top of all of the surveys. roads, roads, roads is always at the top of the surveys. And it's true, we do have some gravel roads. We've got areas of the township that aren't served by water, aren't served by sewer. So, you know, those are all the kinds of things that we're trying to deal with within this community that we are unlikely to have any help from anybody else on. And that's what we're trying to figure out, is how we might be able to do that, how long it may take to do that, and at the same time continue to maintain what we have that's usable now.
Secretary.
Yeah, I just pulled up off the state website our filing deadlines for local proposals. And for the August primary ballot, it has to be in by April 29th, which I don't think we would meet for August. Yeah, so for November is July 29th. So we have basically a little after 3 to 4 months to figure this out before.
And I think that was a consensus of the board on November 19th. They wanted to get it to the election that more residents were likely to show up, so we get as much input as we could.
So we have basically until the end of July to come up with something.
Yeah, once we get all this done, then you have to work on the wording for the ballot proposal, so.
Trustee LaRue.
To follow up on Danny's comment about gravel roads, we're not gonna forget about the gravel roads, we're still gonna maintain them, but we're hoping that the county road commission could help us with that, take care of them roads. You know, because if we're gonna start taking care of some of the hard surface, they can come up and step up and help us with them. But we're not gonna forget about them, that's for sure. It's all part of the program, blacktop or gravel. They're all the roads that our residents have to travel on, so.
Manager Gerard.
I would predict that you will likely see the road commission be talking to townships again about a joint approach to the county board for maintenance millage, countywide. That would free up, their estimate was that would free up enough of their money to be able to do some road construction and some actual repair work as opposed to struggling with just maintenance.
It worked. I'm just impressed that the whole thing worked.
Any more questions?
My whole presentation tonight was to see if that worked.
Now, what is it that you want the board to do at this point in time, you'd like?
Absolutely nothing. We brought this to the board so that to keep everybody informed, and as much as informing the board as to make sure anybody out there that watches this on TV or would show up in the audience, that they have an idea where we're headed, so that saves a lot of rumors.
You're gonna be working with the county road commission to try and get that piece of software so you can utilize it.
Yeah.
That too, so. Okay, if no other questions, we'll move on to the next item, which is the draft report from the Ad hoc Recreation Authority Committee.
It's the first reading of that.
First reading.
Yeah, I'll switch the screen here and use that computer, just put it on the jump drive there.
While they're setting up, going through and reading that online, those 72 pages, is something to sit in front of a computer and try to set and read it, and you see something, then you realize you have to go back and you don't quite know where to go back to and reread something, and it's very difficult. And that, I got to the point, I'm very disgusted after a while. I got
Yeah.
about 50 pages, and I said, wait a minute, I read something to start with, and I'm trying to figure out where that's at. And then-
We did make the attempt
So
to
how do
copy
I-
it for you, and the copy machine didn't like making that many copies all at once, and they were having an awful time with pages accordioning and jamming in the machine and everything else, so I just said,
But
let's
I
not
did
spend
get
all day
through it.
doing this.
Did get through it
Yep.
and that, and there were some comments that I have written down in that too, so.
How do you sort by the most recent? Where's the date? Show detail. I need the date.
I don't know.
It's here. Here, all right.
Do we go on to the next item of business?
If you wish, sure.
Yeah, you actually have in hard copy, it was on your tabletops in hard copy, what Mike was gonna put up on the screen.
Oh, okay.
If you can't get it, I probably can get it on my computer. If you can't get it there, Mike, I do have it on my computer
Here
here.
it is. This is it, yeah. It must be in the morning.
I got it on my computer here.
Do you?
I'll bring it up here.
Okay.
Give me 1 second
Why
to
don't
bring it
you-
up. I'll bring it up here. Hold on 1 second. Okay, here we go. Let me change screens and we should be ready to go here. Just tell me when to advance the document, Mike. There we go.
Thank you.
Well, no.
Mike Springer, Jason McCarthy and I are the two representatives on the the Recreation Authority Feasibility Committee. And what you have in your packet tonight for the first reading is the Multi-Jurisdictional Recreation Authority Feasibility Study. This is draft form. It's not final, but at least we find that the recommendations make a lot of sense. So, next slide, please. In this report, you'll find pages 9 through 24 show 24 different findings in there. Pages 35 through 40, there are 10 conclusions. Pages 40 through 44, there are 4 recommendations. And then finally, 44 through 46 address the action plan. What's the next step? What needs to happen? And I just picked out a few slides here. This isn't as professionally done as Mr. Wiegand's, but just highlighted some of the text I want to cover with you. The conclusion number 10, and this is really what the committee found by looking at all the surveys and looking at the state recreation plan, is that it fits. Trails and trail connectivity have consistently been identified as important in recreational priorities in all 3 jurisdictions. Important part. Next slide, please. But what I want to do is I want to go right to the recommendations, because I really think the recommendations are what really make the study, and that's the important part in my mind. Recommendation 1 is to focus on trails as a common starting point for collaboration. It's our belief that the 3 jurisdictions could successfully collaborate around developing, managing, and maintaining a community-wide and interconnected system of trails. Next slide, please. Now, one of the things is, of course, that this township has identified, and certainly the city has identified, and Chocolate as well, is what about the Heartwood Forest? That was something that in our 11 survey, the Planning Commission Citizen Survey, showed that the Heartwood Forest was important to the residents of our community. And it's kind of as a secondary mission, a formal collaboration would provide a platform for representatives of the 3 jurisdictions to focus on, collectively plan for and determine appropriate steps for preserving and managing the Heartwood Forest property. Next, please. And then this seems to be the Iron Ore Heritage Trail. Some of the stuff that's written in here seemed to be the biggest stumbling block, or at least the one that was the most contentious. And before I read any of this on the Iron Ore Heritage Trail, overall, this Recreation Authority has a real good relationship with the Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Authority. Don Britton, who is a member of the Iron Ore Authority, is also a member of our feasibility committee. And one of the things that we stated a long time ago, that we do not want to do anything that in any way jeopardizes the work of the Heritage Trail and the Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Authority. So I just want to make that clear. But there are some issues that have been pointed out. And in this one, on this one here, on the, what about the Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Authority? And basically what they did, they interviewed Carol Fulsher and they came up with some things that it's possible that the Recreation Authority may consider expanding, resizing, refocusing their mission after 2016. Carol Fulcher, Jim Thomas, Don Britton have made it very clear that they have their mission, their focuses through 16 and 17, and they do not see expanding their mission to incorporate anything that this feasibility committee is looking at. So I just want to make that clear. I do have a letter. Lynn was referring to a letter, March 28th, that basically what it just states is that they want to stick with their mission, and they don't want to necessarily take on any more responsibilities or change their charter. They just can't do that. So I just want to clarify that. Next, please. This recommendation number 2 is to work together to develop a specific plan with a common focus. As noted earlier, all 3 jurisdictions entered into this study with different priorities. The feasibility committee also developed its own considerations over the course of its work, particularly focused on joint management of the Heartwood Forest property and the expansion of interconnected trail network. We believe that a single common focus will be necessary to ensure the successful collaboration, particularly early in the endeavor. This effort would hone the mission of the collaboration, establish specific priorities, and continue to help build trust among partners. We think this is key because we want to continue to move forward working together. Next piece, please. It talks about leveraging current strength. We have a lot of strength in this area in terms of trails. We have the Nokemenon Trail Network, also the Iron Ore Heritage Trail. We have North Country Trail that passes through here. So we basically have a national trail with the North Country Trail. We have a regional trail with the Iron Ore Heritage Trail, and we have more of a local, actually regional trails as well with the Nokemenon Trail Network. So we feel that by working together with these trail networks and other municipalities, we can really bring more to bear, and we can really see more progress in the way of trail development and preserving green space and recreation area in Heartwood. Next, please. Recommendation 4 just says to investigate a conservation easement for recreation portions of the Heartwood Forest property. Next, please. And I just want to point out in that recommendation, the last sentence in that paragraph is, without some type of permanent protection in place, there is nothing preventing future leaders from designating the conservation, or what we're talking about, Heartwood Forest area, for additional commercial and residential development. So it's really important that we have a view of those areas that we want to protect and set aside for recreation in perpetuity. And through collaboration, by working with these other 2 municipalities and these other 3 trail networks, we feel that we can do that. We can preserve more, and we can provide better recreational programming and opportunities for people. Next, please. Action step. The single most important action is to create a formal mechanism by which representatives of the 3 jurisdictions and any other representatives that may join, possibly from the trail networks, can continue to regularly meet and develop ways to move forward with the issues outlined in this study. We recommend the collaborators establish a new interjurisdictional committee under the Intermunicipality Committee Act, and it goes on to describe that. So, next page, please. I also want to point out that it's more important to establish an interjurisdictional committee that is specifically charged with further studying the important issues at hand and making recommendations to legislative bodies of each jurisdiction. We believe establishing a committee under Act 200 provides more autonomy and more formal platform for this discussion than another ad hoc or feasibility committee. And Basically, the next slide, please. The primary purpose of the committee should be to develop clear and specific plan for formal recreational collaboration between the partners. This will include meeting and talking with the Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Authority and its partnering municipalities to determine if it would like to renew a broader focus of connecting trails throughout the committee. I already mentioned that that's not going to happen, as pointed out by the authority themselves. And I'm going to skip the next one. And let's move on to the last page. And basically, these are the short-term actions. And I hope that this board basically at some point unanimously supports this. A lot of work has gone into it. It's a good report. It's given us a lot of information. I really believe that the overall recommendations are sound and that they will help us move forward. Just about all state funding now, you need to show collaboration, working with other municipalities, other entities to be considered for funding. This is the right step in the right direction, and I'm glad Marquette Township is part of this. Thank you. Any questions?
Questions?
Yeah,
Board
questions.
members? Dan?
Is, this is coming to us for a first reading, is this also going to? This is coming to us for a first reading, is this also going to the city as well as Chalkley for their first readings, or?
There was a meeting with the city, the feasibility committee met with the city. Oh, yeah, thank you. I just asked you to do the same thing. Okay. The rec authority, the Recreation Feasibility Committee met with the city about 2 weeks ago. And that's where some of the issues with Iron Ore Heritage Trail came out. But overall, I can't speak for Nikki DeWalt or Jesse Jones, but overall, the city seemed receptive to this and moving forward. Does that answer your question?
So they would vote on this also, just like we are making this? They would agree to this also the same way we're agreeing to it?
I can't speak for the city, and they haven't had a final vote on this, but I believe, it was my impression, that the city will move forward with this. That's all I can.
I believe the initial formation of this was that it would go back to all three of the governing bodies for approval or for non-approval.
So we're basically approving it, but the other two haven't yet.
And you don't certainly have to, I'm not asking for that tonight. I
No,
mean, you can approve it. This is your first reading, and
Right.
certainly, get your questions answered. And if I can't answer them tonight, I'll come back with some answers for you.
Yeah.
But yes, the city has not approved it. I know Chocolate Township Board, though, has approved this, the study. They agree with the study.
Yeah, the stage that you're at right now is, remember, you've established an ad hoc committee to determine whether it's even feasible to look for an authority. All you're doing tonight is doing a first read on their draft recommendation. You're not taking in action to commit to anything.
No, I guess what my question was is if we agree to this, the Chalkley agrees to this, but the city doesn't, then is it just like a?
Exactly.
Okay.
It takes all three legislative bodies.
Yeah, it takes all three to agree to then go forward and establish an authority. So you're not even at that point yet.
Clerk Rattari?
Yeah, again, what Manager Gerard is stating, all we're doing tonight is accepting the first reading of the draft report. That's not committing us really to that much. The next meeting, we would get the second reading and possible adoption of that report. So that's basically, we're in the step now. We got another few weeks to review it again for more questions. And then the next meeting, we would possibly come back and adopt the report as we accept it.
There is a
basically.
public forum presentation of this that is scheduled the 21st of April. I believe that's a Monday. And I think it's 6 p.m. at the Citizens Forum in the Lakeview Arena. So, April 21st, 6 p.m. And at that time, it'll be presented by the organization that wrote the report. And now I can't think of their name. LIAA.
Randy?
I'll make a motion, we accept the first reading of the draft report from the Ad hoc Recreation Authority Exploratory Committee.
I'll support.
Okay, we have a motion made, and support, questions, comments? Lynn?
I don't know how many of these questions you can answer, but
Okay.
do you know if this is the original map that the City Planning Commission put together when their committee got?
What Lynn is showing is a map of the Heartwood Forest with different colors and designations for how that's planned. That is a map that the city provided. Now, I don't know anything other than if there's a date on that map.
Yeah, there really isn't. And the only reason I'm questioning it is, or one of the reasons I'm questioning it is because the recommendations you've given, or this, not you personally, collectively, some of the parcels are different.
Are they?
Yes. Some of the residential, some of the protected properties are now in residential.
Okay, and
According to-
let me find out what pages we got to clarify that, because we do have an
You have 'em
opportunity
listed.
to.
You have them listed on page 6.
Page 6?
Yeah, it says, as outlined in the ad hoc committee's report, and there's 3 bullets detailing which parcels fall into which categories.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so those don't line up, so if you could
All
check
right.
on that then,
Thank you. And that's with that map, and that
with
map is
this map,
appendix?
right. Now, I do have, and I didn't, in
I'll
fact,
find
I might have it with me, I could look, but it's probably take too much time. Some of the green is what's supposed to be conserved, roughly 12,000 or 1,200 acres. There are 4 parcels in there that you say don't fall into that. And then there's a parcel in the purple, which is supposed to not be used at all for anything, is now in residential. So that's a whole different ballgame. So if you want to, line those up, and, check on that, that would be one thing.
I would do that, making notes. Now, you also said something about purple. What'd you say about that?
Yeah, purple, actually 24 is turned over to residential, so that kind of
Page
surprised
24?
me. No, parcel 24
Parts of 20.
is in the residential when that was supposed to be purple. I mean, by theirs.
When
So,
you say parts of 24, you're talking about the section, or? I'm not quite.
yeah, I can actually show you this after if you want.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
I can show you, because I've
That'd
got
be
it
fine.
colored, it might make more sense.
Yeah, there may be a fair amount of confusion, because I think the map that you're looking at, just from the brief that I saw, looks like the map that the city originally adopted at the recommendation of their study committee. That does not take into consideration any of the actions of our planning commission in terms of zoning for the property within Marquette Township, or the tax tribunal issues that we have going forward that may totally change the look of that map.
Right. I'm figuring it would change. That's why I was wondering if it was what was recommended. And I believe it is. Secondly, I'm kind of wondering then, from some of the people I've talked to from the city, this is not what they expected. So, I mean, we can't propose or expect or figure out what the city's gonna do.
Right.
But I'm surprised that you guys had a meeting already, and they're sort of agreeing with it, and it isn't the direction they wanted to go at all.
And this was a work session, so obviously there were no formal
Okay, so it was just
motions made.
discussions and.
And you're right, the city had, initially, and it probably still does, I mean, they're looking for ways to fund recreation facilities, and I think that was part of the impetus to get this started. But studies are studies, and the study covered a broad gamut of recreational providers, and this is what the study came up with, and all 6 members, including the 2 representatives from the city, are supportive of the study. So, but yes, it doesn't solve the city's recreation problems, but they also see this as an opportunity to possibly protect Heartwood, and certainly the city's a very big advocate of trail use and using trails. They've done a nice job in the city.
You did come up with a couple of points, and I should have had them tagged, but how the public may not be willing to fund this. Again, I talked to a city resident this week that said, no way am I paying for this in taxes again, because I'm already paying for that property. So, I mean, those kinds of issues are probably going to come out.
Right.
Maybe when we all get together and meet.
And we're looking at different ways that we could, if you're talking about the Heartwood, looking at different ways that we would be able to possibly, purchase, and then also, I mean, that would help the city, but also put it in perpetuity. And that's the next step, and that's why it's really important that we have a formal committee, a multi-jurisdictional committee, where we record minutes and they're posted, and it just like any other formal committee. And it's the next step. In terms of funding, all that stuff will be figured out by this next committee.
Right, that doesn't seem bad. One of the observations I did make in the city budget, arts and culture is also included in their recreation. So I don't know how that would fit into buying.
Yeah, I'm
Heartwood
sure that,
property.
the city has a big budget. I mean, as a matter of fact, one of the images that you saw, I think it was on recommendation number 2, there's a chart there that shows how much the city spends. And so, yes, we are not, or at least right now, these are the recommendations. We want trails, we would like to protect some property in Heartwood, and we want to continue a good relationship with the R&R Heritage Recreation Authority and move forward in communication and working together.
One thing I did find out too is that if any of us are looking for MNRTF money to do anything with these properties, municipalities cannot apply for MNRTF money to buy property from municipalities.
If it is already in the public, if it's designated public recreation, true. However, there are some, we're looking into that.
Okay.
There may be some, and there may be some other ways to fund it through other sources too. But again, that is something that the next step would help identify. Yeah, funding is always a big question. I know Mr. Johnson have always asked, okay, show me the money. How are we going to pay for this? And right on. And that's a good question, a viable question. At this point, we're not proposing anything other than continue to get together with the other 2 municipalities and the 3 trail networks and move forward.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had for now.
Manager Gerard.
Yeah, Trustee Durant, if I may here, basically the step that you're at right now, all of those things, the 3 communities have differing opinions basically of what a recreation authority would look like and what it would entail and what it would contain. The draft that's coming from the ad hoc committee that has simply representatives from each of those entities is suggesting that it focus on trails. That may not be acceptable to all 3 of the communities, and you may not get to the point of having an authority. If we do get that far, the authority will be a separate governing entity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it'll be an entity all to itself with the ability to then manage those trails, to levy millage, to do a variety of other things, and the 3 governing bodies essentially give up control of the those amenities within their jurisdictions to that authority. So that'll be a whole different discussion if it gets to that point, if all 3 of the entities accept this draft. You're absolutely right. The city of Marquette, for instance, had a lot of things on the plate that they wanted included in the authority. The R&R Heritage Trail is already an authority. They have governing, they're drawing millage, and that's why they're presuming that's why they're shying away from being a part of another authority. They don't want to give up their ability to manage the backbone, the R&R Trail.
Because that's what their ballot
That's what they're all about, and that's what their ballot said, and that's what we're all paying millage for. And you raised an excellent question, and that is for the folks that are already paying millage to buy that property, are they going to be willing to pay more millage to give it to somebody else and manage it again? So those are all things that have to be worked out in the authority negotiations if we get to that point.
And this report points out the confusion for voters if you had two recreation authorities. So really, what we need to do is to continue to work together and move forward and see what develops. And everything will be brought to this board before, any major decisions are made, so.
Further questions? I have a couple. Going back to when we first started this, we were talking about kind of controlling or putting in a system for sporting events and that, utilizing fields and everything else and that. And this has kind of really moved out in a whole different area in that. So in reading parts of this and looking through it, that came back to me more and more in that. And another item that came up, and this comes back to the Township Association conference. And one of the sessions I attended, they were talking about cooperating with municipalities next to you. And you're talking about millage. And they came up and says, you have to be very careful with that when you talk about millage. Especially if one of them happens to have a DDA. What it amounts to is that DDA is an authority in itself. So if you put a millage there, they're going to capture that DDA for that mill, whatever it is for that kind of dollar. So you're losing that right off the top. So if a millage was set up, then that DDA, and talking about the city, would capture that millage for that kind of valuation. It would never get to the recreation or authority or anything else in that. They would be using it within their own area in that too. They suggested going with a special assessment. Then everyone, and he said, you're talking about profit and nonprofit, they're all going to be involved with it in that too. So you do have a lot of nonprofits that would be taxed. If you want to talk about, if you want to say taxed to a special assessment, they would have to pay their way. So there's things to think about that way. If you talk about millage, you're going to lose millage. Not knowing what their base is for the DDA versus, and being on the DDA for the township. Example is, if you have a base starting out at 100,000, and that's what you tax, and that's what would go to the community. Now, if you went up in valuation to 300,000, that extra $200,000 that you're taxing would go to the DDA and not to the community. So those something you have to think about when we get into that financial ways to look at it.
We might need to invite you as a guest speaker to our committee
Well, we
to
have a
help us
DDA
with
though,
funding.
too.
But we have a DDA, but we're not levying any dollars or anything at this point in time.
Our TIF does not exist. Our TIF is expired. But you're absolutely right. City of Marquette does have a TIF with their DDA, and there would be captures. So there are cautions that need to be pursued, and you're absolutely correct. When this first started, and Trustee LaRue and I were involved in it, it was how do we jointly manage our ball fields, and is there a need for additional ball fields? And that quickly bloomed into marinas and senior centers and everything else that obviously became obvious that we were never going to get there. So it was the whole function here was to narrow it down to what could be the impetus for a recreation authority, and focusing on trails. Now, whether or not that actually flies with all three communities is yet to be seen in terms of governing bodies looking at it. But you're right. There are many, many, many issues to be addressed in the formation of an authority.
This is, I think, is the first step, and that is the first reading, and it'll have to go to second reading. If we get to second reading, we don't want to act on it, it'll just sit there for a while. So we do have a motion on the floor, and it's been seconded. Any further comments?
I have one more question,
One more
because
question.
I don't know who would know, if you know. Can Marquette Township, or maybe Randy knows, do a conservation easement, say with the Nature Conservancy or somewhere, to guarantee that land if we were to purchase it? I don't know how that works exactly.
Right.
Property that we own,
And I'm
yes.
not real certain on it. I know Gladstone has conservation easement. There's a number of municipalities that have that as a zoning option. I don't know if I should say zoning option, but so that's something else we have to look into in more detail to find out how that would happen.
Property you own can be put into a conservation easement, but you give up control of that property.
Right, right. Yeah, but I didn't know if as a municipality, if we could do that. Okay.
We can also acquire the property and by deed restrict its use.
That's what we tried to do with the city the first time,
Well, and the-
guaranteeing to them that we wouldn't develop it, that we
Right.
did want to keep it.
Well, and that's what we did with the property that we purchased, the Wellfield property, for instance. The property that we purchased is restricted by deed to the uses that we intend it to be forever. If we sell the property, the deed goes with that restriction on it. A good example is the road that we put on the rear access road to Starbucks, let's say. When that property transfers, that's restricted. It's on the deed to be there.
Any further questions? If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Negative? It's passed. So we'll move forward. The first reading has been passed, and we'll move forward on the second reading. Probably will be on the next agenda.
Thank you.
At that point in time, if we have any further questions, we'll bring it up, and we have to make a decision. We want to move forward on it. Okay. Next item we come up is the MTA Legislative Day. Question is, who is interested in going, and questions and comments concerning it? Pete?
I have a comment about, we get 15 to 20 minutes. Now, is that for the group, or is that just for 15, 20 minutes per person that goes there? Or,
Historically, it's been the group of people that are there.
I'm just saying, how many's gonna go down there versus how much are we gonna, how much time do we have to even discuss it? So I think we should be limited to how many can go there, so you can get all your questions, and what questions do we have? I mean, I just went down there, 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes per person, but it's the township that got 15, 20 minutes.
It's the entire group that has 15, 20
Yeah.
minutes. As a for instance, last year, we were in, with Senator Casperson, we were in a room with, 15 people?
I think so, yeah.
And we had 15 minutes, period. Not 15 minutes each.
There were probably, half a dozen municipalities of those 15 people, or one or two from each one.
Correct.
That's all we got.
Do you agree upon the questions ahead of time? So
No.
you-
Notice, unless you get together the night before,
That's what
or
I'm
before
saying,
you go with the
because,
other
you know
group,
what?
but you don't know who's gonna be there.
Exactly.
You really don't know who's going to be with you in the meetings.
Well, I'd hate to see, some questions asked and some important questions not asked for your time slot of 15, 20 minutes, so. Whoever goes down there, I mean, if you get together and get the important questions first, and I would like to see maybe, have Casperson and Kevla, when they're up in this area, sit down with us right here, or invite, the Ghani Chalk, whoever wants to come. But I think would have, sometimes they have about an hour slot for something like that, and then we'll have more time to talk about it too. But I think it's important that to go down there and discuss these things, but I just question 15, 20 minutes if it's per person, per group, or whatever, so I got that. But I think the questions should be rated as far as, what kind of questions and the seriousness of them, so.
It was just an open forum. We just sat in a room, a third the size, in chairs, and he came in and said, "So what's up?"
I think that's where the problem comes into play. I mean, we could have our set amount of questions, but then again, so could somebody else. So whoever jumps in there first, basically, if it takes up all 15 minutes,
Yeah, but you got 15, 20 just for Marquette Township.
no.
No.
Oh.
For the whole
No,
group.
no, no, for the whole
You got
group.
15,
Whoever's sitting in
15,
that
20
room.
minutes for the whole group.
Yeah, I don't,
Townships could show up.
Really?
2 townships could show up.
none could show up. Your legislator might show up, like last year.
Oh, I thought it was 15, 20 minutes per.
I did
No.
too when we went
No.
down.
The biggest benefit to this legislative advocacy day is to get a lot of township officials into Lansing to meet with the representatives to demonstrate that the MTA has some people behind them, and and to bolster the MTA. Trustee LaRue, you're absolutely right. The MML does this all the time, Michigan Municipal League, all the time. The legislators, I know that Representative Keeble meets with the city every quarter. Every 3 months, he's here to meet with the city commission. There's no reason we couldn't do the same.
I think it's very important that we do something like that, push it, because we have so many issues that, for our township. I mean, we got the tax tribune, you got all, the tax tribune itself is take up 15, 20 minutes just to explain it. It's where we're heading for it.
So
I
far,
mean,
it's
we got
taken 2.5
roads,
years.
Yeah, we got roads, we got everything,
Do you have your mic
recreation.
on?
Pardon me?
Do you have your mic on? I can't hear you as well.
I'm speaking very softly.
Sorry.
But I'm just saying, that's why I was a little frustrated. I'd like to go down there, but I'm not going to go down and ask some of the questions that I'd like to answer. But Randy's going to be there, and someone else is going to be. And I think for our township, if you get together and get your questions, so we try to shoot them out there as fast as we can.
Yeah, I don't have to be there. I just want to make sure that somebody is there from the township to represent, so that's why the cars are reserved to go. I think it's important that we have board members be there, if for no other reason, just to show that,
Right.
we're interested in what's happening in Lansing, and we support the MTA and in their mission. But you're right. I mean, you've got 1,200 townships, and you've got half a day, for all the representatives of those 1,200 townships to have some time with their particular legislators. And, and last year we had Senator Casperson came in and spoke with us, and Representative Keeble, representative, came in and talked with us.
I think it's great, but I think we should follow up on getting them to come in here and talk to us.
Well, I would think that the County Townships Association should establish a regular meeting schedule
I'm
with
gonna
both,
bring that up at the
with
meetings.
both legislators, and then the individual townships could sit in on that meeting, as a group with representatives or as an entire board. That wouldn't be something you'd have to post. I don't believe you wouldn't have to post something like that as an open meeting, because you're going to meet with somebody else.
And actually, there is, prior to the meeting with the legislatures, there is policy sessions, and they usually have some representatives there to discuss any issues that we have. I know that happened last time. We were all given the opportunity to ask questions, and I don't think much of the responses, but
Well, and the only drawback with that is that the folks from the UP that ride the bus are pretty wiped out by the time they get there for that. So
and actually, by the time they got there, they actually missed the morning session.
yeah, you actually did. You were late because of weather. Yeah.
So
The whole forum is just not real conducive to being productive in my mind, because I went down the night before, stayed in Escanaba, because the bus goes there. So I got a motel, stayed in Escanaba, got up at 3 o'clock in the morning to be on the bus for 4, rode until, 10:30, 11 o'clock, got there, had lunch, saw the forum of 4 people or something, which was good. It was good till you could ask a few questions, not very many. And then we went over to talk to Casperson and Keeble, and then we got back on the bus and we left. And I was, you're sleeping on the bus in the clothes that you're supposed to be wearing, because there's no time to change, or you don't have suitcases. And I got no sleep, so you're trying to sleep even on the way home. And my objection was that it's too grueling of go down and come back the same day and try to be productive and try to sound intelligent and look presentable. So if it were going to be, I had asked them down there last year, do this for 2 days. Even if I paid for my own hotel, I don't care. And make it more conducive to actually being productive.
Well, I looked at the schedule.
The way it isn't.
You leave at 4, you get down there at 11:15, it starts at 11, so already you're behind.
It starts
you're
at
late.
9 or
Then you go
9:30.
have a little lunch, so that's another 15, 20 minutes, so you missed the first
Yeah.
Well,
45 minutes to an hour.
It's not
And again, I think I'll go the road of what happens. It's the same with the MTA conference, if you think about it. I mean, it's not designed for the Upper Peninsula to make these meetings. That's, to me, it pretty much comes down to that, because it's, the fact that we had the conference in Traverse City was probably the biggest plus we've had since I've been going to them. But but we're going to Grand Rapids again next year, so it doesn't.
Well, and they're
You know,
willing to
but
pay
so,
for
and it actually comes the same thing, you're right, the same thing happens on this one. We don't, it's not conducive to us. I mean, it's great to be there, and I love to be there, but to this deal about getting on a bus at 4 in the morning, driving all the way down to Lansing for 2 hours and then get back on a bus and drive all the way back to Marquette again, just doesn't work.
No, whatever,
I'd like to
you
go,
know,
I don't want to do it again.
whatever the board decides in terms of participation, I would definitely recommend that you take the township car and you go down the night before, or the afternoon before, and, you know, spend the evening, be refreshed, do the morning program. It starts at 9 or 9:30, I think. Go through that, talk with the MTA reps that are there, meet with the legislators, and then drive back. I mean, it's certainly,
It finishes at 2 or something. you
4
know.
o'clock.
4?
yeah. But I would think, you know, more than 2 or 3 representatives would be overkill, because you're really not going to have a chance to do much discussion with the legislators other than hit them with a handful or a few items that, you know, the board feels are of interest. So you hit them with it and they get the message.
Further comments in that? At the Township Association I just attended, they indicated that if they have 10 or more people from this area, they'll have the bus starting from up here rather than Escanaba. My comment was, okay, but you're still starting at 3 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah, then you get on the bus at 3.
3 rather than 4.
For a
and that-
15-minute meeting at 1.
Yeah, so I think some of the comments that were brought up here are very worthwhile, and I believe going down the day before would probably be the best way to do it, and that, because you can leave mid-afternoon and be down there early evening and that, and,
If you take the township car or a rental, it's a 6-hour drive.
yeah, so.
You know, you're there in 6 hours.
Who would be interested in going down there if we did it that way, going down the day before? How many?
I said that I'd be willing to pay my own hotel and go down, so. But I didn't even think about the car till Randy suggested it.
I can't go, so that's one out.
Okay,
I can't go.
can't go. Dan?
Yeah, I can go, I guess.
Okay. Pete?
No, there are 2 then already, that's enough. I mean,
I've gone, if you want to go.
If you want
to go,
yeah, I've gone
It's something to participate in, it's just quick.
Actually, very good.
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
People let us know. I will too. I think we have until the 18th to make a decision on that. But what I'm hearing is
Somebody
we'll
should
be going
go.
down Wednesday, spending night down there, heading all the sessions on Thursday, and then coming back Thursday night. We'll either take the township vehicle or we'll rent a vehicle and that.
Pack a peanut butter sandwich.
So we'll kind of leave it at that, and there'll be time by the time we get to the next meeting and that too, so, yes, sir.
Yeah, actually, like when the city does travel, there's no more than 3 commissioners in a
Oh, sure.
vehicle. So,
Quorum thing.
so you're stuck to 3. Yeah, so you have 3 people that can travel in one vehicle. So, it kind of limits it to 3. So.
Okay, so,
That's
Well,
fine.
I can definitely back out. I
can-
don't have a problem.
Go ahead.
No.
We can hash it out then.
yeah, we still have time. By the next meeting, we have to do it, so, yes, Randy.
Well, I'll make a motion that we authorize up to 3 people to go to this event if they so desire.
Their support.
Support.
Any further discussion?
I would suggest that if we do get a room, it should probably be at the Radisson, so it's not a lot of running around.
Yeah, I did check with the MTA, and they do not have a block of room, so it's just a regular government reservation, so.
Any further? If not, we'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Okay, so by the next meeting, we want to make sure who is going in that and how we're going to lay it all out in that. So we'll have an agenda again.
Well, basically, whoever, no more than 3, basically we can get the 3, get their names to Lois, and she can probably get hotel room set up for them the night before.
Right.
And then they can figure out the travel arrangements, and I think we'll be fine, so.
So right now, we have a possibility for Lynn and Dan and Pete. I have to check with the wife and see how she's doing in that too, so. Other than that, I have no problem. So that's the only problem I have in it.
That's fine. Like I said, I've been, so if somebody else wants to go, that's fine. Somebody should be there.
Okay. Next item is the manager's recommendations on the policy and procedures manual, which you all received a copy of, either online or in paper form.
Now, these are actually not my recommendations. These are the recommendations that came back from Labor Council with regard to the changes that the legislature and the governor made in 2013 and 2012 and 2013, as well as the impacts of the collective bargaining agreements that we just recently negotiated. So they're there for your consideration. The fire department manual is not finished yet. There's just another change to, was it 74, I think it was, Dan? PA 74, something like that, several changes that he's modifying before he sends them back to us.
Randy?
My recommendation as I worked on this for probably when I was a trustee for at least 2 years to get it to where it was, and then legal counsel had reviewed it again to get it to where it is now. I guess my recommendation would be to approve it as it is now, and then turn it over to the Personnel Committee to do an annual review. That would be my recommendation, because the Personnel Committee actually has the charge of reviewing this document annually, and then they bring it back to us. But as it is reviewed right now by legal counsel, it is current as it is, and it is acceptable by our legal counsel. And the bargaining agreements have basically took a lot of the things out of this. So it's basically, the teeth of this is basically in the bargaining agreements now. So that's would be my recommendation, that we accept it as is now, so we have an updated one. And then I would like to give this back to the Personnel Committee to do an annual review with the manager and with legal every year, and then we can, make sure we have an updated policy manual every year then.
Are you making that motion or just?
I think if that, I would make that motion that we accept it as is, and then we turn it over to the Personnel Committee for an annual review.
Is there a second to that motion? I don't hear a second, so we'll move on.
Second for discussion. I just wanna.
We have a second for a discussion.
That's the way it should go. Personnel Committee should look at it before we move it on.
Well, it's legally reviewed as it is now. It's acceptable to them. It would be given back to the Personnel Committee, because that's their charge, to review this annually.
Personnel would.
And then you bring this back annually to the board to approve for the, the following year.
Dan?
I would like to hold off till the next meeting. I never did get your email about your concerns, so, and I haven't, in all honesty, have not had a chance to really go through a lot of it yet, being I was gone, and the other things that were presented to us tonight. So I really haven't had a chance to take a good look at it. I'd like to see what Lynn's comments are. So if we could hold off for 2 weeks and possibly vote on it on the 15th.
Yeah, if board members do have concerns, certainly, if you shoot those to me, I'll shoot them down to Aaron Graves and have him respond to them and put it on the agenda for the next meeting, 2 weeks.
I sent it before I left the house tonight, or 5 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
It went to your township email. Mostly questions. It
Oh.
talks about the general manager. I'm thinking that's a typo. It's probably township manager.
The general manager? I
There's
didn't see
there's a
that.
few typos in there. But I had questions about the doctor with the physical, and when do the employees get copies of the job description? It doesn't say in there.
Mhm.
It looks like very little authority is given to the department heads, that everything has to go through the township manager. I don't know if that's common or expected, or it's like, well, why do we have department heads? I don't know. I'm just used to, a business way of doing things. It talks about personal factors in outside employment. I mean, just read my comments and see what you think.
Okay, yeah, I haven't seen
I
them.
just figured we'd talk about it tonight, so I didn't expect to vote.
Well, I will, for the sake of that, I will withdraw my motion. And I'll just make a motion to put this on the next agenda
I'll read
under
it.
old business.
Will the second withdraw?
Yes.
Okay. Now we have a motion to put it on the next agenda. Do we have a second to that?
I'll support that.
Support support that. So in the meantime, everyone kind of take a look at it as much depth if you can and ask as many questions and that. My comment was, and I talked to Manager Gerard today, I had a difficult time bringing it up on the computer at the house. So I had to come in and get a paper copy. I just couldn't make it work, and I still can't make it, the township computer work at the house and that. So I started going through, I went through everything that the attorney went through, and the question I raised to our manager is, was anything else changed over and above what the attorney did? And his comment was, no, it was only what the attorney said. That was, otherwise I figured I'd have to go through section by section by section to see what it was in that too. And I just wasn't about to sit down and do a comparison between the old one and the new to make sure there were no major changes in that, so.
Well, their comments were the first couple pages, I think,
Yes.
before this document. But that makes sense now if the attorneys did it, because there's two sentences in there that didn't even make sense. It just, I mean, the way that's worded, they've got extra words or they're missing words. I put it in my notes.
Some of the way, some of the acts that were passed at the 11th hour in the last legislative session in 2012 didn't make any sense and they were contradictory. So, that's why you see some of the language that you see in here is because you've got contradictory language in two different statutes.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to put it on the next agenda. Any further comments? If not, we'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying, do you have another comment?
I was just gonna ask for a hard copy, because I was like,
Okay,
Bernie, I couldn't get it to,
we'll get a hard copy. We'll get a hard copy. Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carried, so.
Just so everyone's in the minutes, I made a motion, I withdrew it, that won't be there. It'll just be the motion that was ultimately passed, okay?
Correct. Next item up is the power plant zone representatives. So, has everyone had a chance to look at that? And is anybody interested? We're in zone 1. So, yes.
I asked Manager Gerard to put this on, this came to me, and I asked Manager Gerard to put this on the agenda. I mean, we don't have to do this, but it's to our benefit to have someone to go to this, to be a representative, because that is our insurance carrier and the power plan. And, we can give us some input in those things. So it's just up to the board's pleasure if they want to move someone forward. And I believe there's an election and such involved also. But if someone is interested, that's why I moved it to the boards for their pleasure so they can do that.
Trustee LaRue.
I'd like to see our manager Gerard just make some comments on this. You explain it a little bit better?
Excuse me, the power plan is the organization that manages the power plant insurance plan for townships, and that's our liability insurance, our general coverage for automotive, a variety of things. It's not our life insurance or our health insurance. It's basically the operational insurances that we have. It's governed by the power plan board, and the local members, which are the municipalities basically that belong to the power plan, have the opportunity whenever there's an election or a vacancy on the board to nominate from their zone a replacement. And it has to be one of the elected officials. It can't be staff. So it does have to be one of the elected officials in the township. And Clerk Rattari is right. This is the board that oversees the maintenance or the management and the operation of the insurance system. The bidding for the various entities that provide the insurance, the companies, the cost of the premiums, those kinds of things. So it's a regular board position, governing body position. They meet, I believe they meet quarterly. I don't know if it says in here, but I think they meet quarterly.
So who's done it in the past, Randy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, do we have anybody that was on?
No, we have never, to my knowledge, we've never had a representative from Marquette Township that has served on it. There are other townships within Zone 1, and Zone 1's defined as Baraga County, Dickinson County, Gogebic, Houghton, Iron, Keweenaw, Marquette, Menominee, and Ontonagon. So it's always been somebody from one of those other townships that has been on the power plan. board. So we've never, to my knowledge, well, not since I've been here, and I've not seen any reference to us having a representative even before that.
So my understanding is that if we nominate somebody, then it goes to a vote.
Goes to a vote of the power plan members. It's a general membership vote statewide
I
in
guess
our,
is-
in
I
our
guess my-
zone, basically.
How many representatives do they have in each zone? One?
One, yeah.
So
This would be the
So in
zone
other words,
representative.
all the people that want to run in Baraga, Dickinson, Gogebic,
They would all be
Marquette,
on a ballot.
they go on a ballot, and then they vote on, oh, okay.
Yep. So they would all be on a ballot, and all of us in those townships would vote.
So I would suggest that you take a look at it and see if you're interested, and we'll bring it up at the next meeting to make a final decision.
Yeah, and you may want to go to the power plan website, just to take a look at it. They put out a brief little magazine informational newsletter that comes around quarterly. But the primary thing is that they're the board that manages the power plant insurance program.
Yeah, you're not at the meeting, you lose out.
So, I would suggest as the acting chair that we put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
15th?
And everyone takes a look at it and see if you're interested in partaking in that, and we'll move forward.
So how about that being a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll support that.
So I think in the meantime, if you go online to look at the power plan to see what's really involved in that position and that too, so. If they say it's 4 times a year, where's it at? And what's involved in that too? I probably should have said where downstate is it involved in that too, so.
Yeah, you know it's downstate.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, trustee Pompey seconded that motion.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passed. Okay, we go on to the next item of business, which is the manager's report.
You do have a printed report from me. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. The one that's probably of most interest to you is what's happening with the freeze-ups. I did send out an update that was just compiled as of the end of March, basically. What it amounts to is we are still experiencing freeze-ups. Right now, we have 53 of our residences and businesses that are on let run. In other words, their water is running, basically, and it's keeping their pipes from freezing. We have had numerous freeze-ups that have been thawed. We've had breaks, and Treasurer Johnson was referring to Fair Avenue earlier. It's been a fairly popular place for excavation recently with sewer lines, so there are some holes being dug. To date, we have expended a little over $22,000, almost $23,000 in out-of-pocket expenses for overtime and for other services that we've had to purchase outside for excavators and things such as that. What has not had a dollar amount attached to it as yet is the amount of water that we're not gaining revenue from. As it sits right now with the 53 entities, residents and businesses that are on let run right now, that's taking care of a little over 253,000 gallons a day going down the drain. That is also going through the wastewater treatment plant that we are receiving no revenue from. Weather forecasts are somewhat iffy, but it looks like we can look for at least another 2 to 3 weeks of this kind of not necessarily freezing weather, although there is freezing weather forecast here this week and next, but mainly the spring thaw is what may be breaking pipes. The ground starts to heave, pipes break. We haven't had any of that as yet. It's just been freeze-ups at this point, other than the plastic sewer line that did break. So that's been repaired a couple of times. Now it broke a second time. So we are responding daily to new calls of freeze-ups. Mainly right now it's the lateral sewer lines running from the grinder pumps to the main. The main itself is not frozen. We are operating basically a sewage program right now where we are daily, and in some places up to 3 times a day, pumping grinder pumps because they will hold about 40 gallons. So we're going around pumping them out. so folks can continue to remain in their homes and use their facilities. We have a letter that is going out, may have gone out this afternoon, but it will definitely be out by tomorrow, to all of those that have been affected so far and those that we expect that may be affected coming up as yet, advising that we're asking them to restrict their doing of laundry and things such as that would be high-volume water users, because the grinder pumps just won't hold that much water, and we're afraid there may be backups. So that's the snapshot as of right now. As bad as it is for us, we're not as bad as some other communities. But we are tracking daily the water use. Kirk is reporting that to county emergency services. So if and when we ever do get any kind of state relief or federal relief under FEMA, that we will have a finite dollar amount that we'll be able to give to them like we did in 94, 95. We did receive 100% reimbursement in 94, 95. So that, however, was a much more severe freeze, and that was creating some health and safety issues, and that's what they're not seeing so far as health and safety issues. And that's the key that we're trying to demonstrate, that with the frozen hydrants and with the frozen water lines, that is a health and safety issue.
We're just doing too good of a job at keeping it at bay.
Well, I think the thing that really made the difference for us was that early on, when we first started seeing these long-range freeze forecasts, we pulled out, Superintendent Page pulled out the records from 94 and 95, and we put those people on let run right away, on a limited let run, basically, so we didn't have those immediate freezes, which was a good move. But now it's been pervasive for so long, and it's been so cold that even some of the let runs were freezing because they weren't running enough. So that's where we're at as of the end of March.
Comments for Manager Gerard. Dan?
I also noticed that our tax tribunal is coming up on the 8th of
It is.
April.
It's
and
next week.
I'm assuming we're sending representatives down there.
Dulcie and I are going down. We're going to go down Tuesday, drive down on Tuesday. The hearing is at 11 o'clock Wednesday morning. It's going to be a half hour to 45 minutes. It's very similar to the legislative day that you were just talking about. So we're limited to, each side is limited to a half hour in their presentation to the Court of Appeals, and then we'll be heading back.
Will Briding Township be there too?
Briding Township is also going to be there. Denny Olson and their assessor, Joan, will be there as well.
And the
MTA is going to be represented there. The Department of Treasury is going to have a representative there from the Taxation Division. And I suspect there will be a few other folks there.
and the decision doesn't necessarily happen immediately.
No, it may be months before we get the decision from the court. However, we came up on the docket fairly quickly, so they may see some importance to this decision statewide from a taxation standpoint, and there is really some reason to be somewhat expeditious in issuing the decision, because there are a number of tax tribunal cases pending.
Pete, how many cases do we have out of Marquette Township and Iron Mountain?
Iron Mountain, I think the only one that they have right now that's under challenge is the Home Depot, but we have, I'm not even sure, the last count that I had was 12, I think, that we had that were pending, and I think several more have come in since. It's not just big boxes. It's spread down to restaurants, gas, vehicle dealerships, and residents. There were one or two residential claims out of Chocolate Township that went to the tribunal as well.
Only question I have, and I talked to Manager Gerard today on the cost for our water and sewer and that. That's all hard dollars he had laid out.
Those
We
are the
haven't addressed
soft.
soft dollars
Nope.
at this point in time. When I look at the number of times that the service workers have been at my house pumping the grinder and the house is on the street, so you're talking two people there and the vehicle and the equipment, 2 and 3 times, they're down 3 times.
And that's
a day on
during,
Saturday and Sunday,
yeah,
so.
and that's typically during their normal work hours, so there are other things that aren't being done while they're doing that. So those are the soft dollars that you're talking about, and we're also assessing those costs as well. Those are loss of productivity costs.
That's why I'm looking, if they're doing that, they can't do the other things to keep things going. So that is a cost to us that we're losing their services for that.
And that's somewhat the cause of some of the overtime as well.
Any more, any questions? Thank you. Go on to the next thing. The next item is public comment. Public comment? No public comment. Additional comment from the board members? None? Well, what's left is the adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
We got all kinds of support. All in favor?
Right.
Opposed? I guess we adjourn.
Motion adjourn at 9:13.
Didn't even hit your gavel.
Yeah, you didn't